The crystal chandelier, a monstrous spider of light, cast a dazzling, almost menacing glow across the opulent dining room. Lee Min-ho's son, Ji-hoon, barely registered it. His gaze was fixed on the lukewarm tea swirling in his porcelain cup, a pale reflection of the storm brewing inside him. He was surrounded by wealth, by inherited power, yet felt utterly, terrifyingly alone. The board meeting this morning had been a charade, a carefully orchestrated dance of smiles and veiled threats, all aimed at dismantling his father's legacy, piece by piece. He trusted no one. Not the slick-haired executives in their tailored suits, not the socialite vultures circling, hoping to snag a piece of the Lee empire. Not even his own family, fractured by ambition and greed, felt safe. Except, there was one person. Mrs. Kim, the head housekeeper, and in reality, so much more. She had been a fixture in the Lee household since Ji-hoon was a boy, a silent, watchful presence who seemed to anticipate his every need. She was the only one who never asked for anything, who never seemed to want anything beyond his well-being. Her loyalty was a comforting, unwavering beacon in the turbulent sea of his life. He often found solace in the quiet moments they shared in the vast, echoing kitchen, a sanctuary of simple humanity amidst the cold grandeur. "You haven't touched your breakfast, young master," Mrs. Kim said softly, her voice a low, gentle hum that cut through the oppressive silence. She stood beside him, her hands clasped in front of her, her gaze filled with a concern that felt genuine, unlike the practiced sympathy he received from others. Ji-hoon sighed, pushing the cup away. "I have no appetite, Mrs. Kim. The vultures are circling. They want to take everything my father built." Mrs. Kim's expression tightened, her eyes, usually filled with warmth, hardening with a flicker of steel. "They always do, don't they? Those who feast on the scraps of others' hard work. It's more than scraps, Mrs. Kim. They want the whole feast. And I'm starting to think they'll get it." He ran a hand through his already disheveled hair. He was exhausted, the weight of responsibility crushing him. She placed a hand on his arm, her touch surprisingly firm. "Your father was a strong man, Ji-hoon. He wouldn't want you to give up so easily. But what can I do? They're organized, they're ruthless, and I suspect there's betrayal from within. Someone close to me is feeding them information." The thought was a bitter pill, leaving a metallic taste in his mouth. He looked at Mrs. Kim, his eyes pleading. "I don't know who to trust." Mrs. Kim's gaze met his, unwavering. "Trust your instincts, Ji-hoon. And remember, sometimes the truth is hidden in the most unexpected places." She paused, her voice dropping to a near whisper. "I've seen things, young master. Things you need to know." A shiver ran down Ji-hoon's spine. What had Mrs. Kim seen? What secrets had she been guarding all these years? He had always trusted her implicitly, but now, a new kind of trust, a trust born of desperation and the instinct for survival, began to bloom within him. "Tell me," he said, his voice barely audible. "Tell me everything." Mrs. Kim hesitated, her eyes darting towards the doorway, as if afraid of being overheard. "Not here," she said, her voice laced with urgency. "Come to the old garden tonight. After midnight. Bring no one." And with that, she turned and left the dining room, leaving Ji-hoon alone once more, the chandelier's light now feeling like a spotlight, illuminating his fear and his hope in equal measure. He knew, with a certainty that settled deep in his bones, that tonight, everything would change. His life, his father's legacy, the fate of the Lee Empire, it all rested on the words of the woman he had always trusted, the woman who, until now, had remained silently in the shadows. But tonight, the shadows would be broken, and the truth, however brutal, would finally be revealed. The hours crawled by, each tick of the grandfather clock in the hallway a hammer blow against Ji-hoon's nerves. He tried to focus on the documents spread across his desk, quarterly reports, legal briefs, potential investment strategies, but the words swam before his eyes, meaningless symbols on a page. His mind was a whirlwind of anxieties and anticipation. What secrets could Mrs. Kim possibly hold? Secrets that could shift the balance of power, expose the traitors in his midst? The possibilities were both terrifying and exhilarating. He glanced at the clock again. 11:47 p.m. Time was running out. He stood abruptly, pushing the chair back with a screech that echoed in the silent study. He couldn't stay here, trapped within these gilded walls, waiting for the inevitable. He needed to move, to breathe, to prepare himself for whatever revelations awaited him in the old garden. He slipped out of the study, the heavy oak door closing behind him with a soft click. The mansion was eerily quiet, the staff long since retired to their quarters. He navigated the darkened hallways, his footsteps muffled by the thick carpets, a ghost in his own home. He felt a pang of sadness, a deep sense of isolation. This grand estate, his birthright, felt more like a prison than a sanctuary. As he approached the back entrance, leading to the gardens, he paused. He couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched. He scanned the shadows, his senses on high alert, but saw nothing. Just the still, silent darkness. He pushed open the door and stepped out into the night. The air was cool and damp, carrying the scent of rain and decaying leaves. The old garden was a far cry from the manicured lawns and vibrant flower beds surrounding the main house. It was a wild, overgrown space, a forgotten corner of the estate, where nature had reclaimed its territory. Twisted vines climbed the crumbling stone walls, and gnarled trees cast long, eerie shadows in the moonlight. He moved slowly, cautiously, deeper into the garden, his eyes scanning the darkness for any sign of Mrs. Kim. The only sound was the rustling of leaves and the distant hoot of an owl. He felt a prickle of unease. Had he misunderstood? Was this a trap? Mrs. Kim, he called out softly, his voice barely a whisper. Silence. He called again, louder this time. Mrs. Kim, are you there? A figure emerged from the shadows, materializing from behind a towering oak tree. It was Mrs. Kim, her face obscured by the darkness. She was dressed in her usual housekeeper's uniform, but tonight, she carried a small, leather-bound book in her hand. You came, she said, her voice low and grave. Of course, Ji-hoon replied, his heart pounding in his chest. You said you had something to tell me. Mrs. Kim nodded, her gaze fixed on the ground. This is not easy for me, young master. What I am about to tell you will change everything. She took a deep breath and opened the book. The pages were yellowed and brittle, filled with handwritten entries in Korean. This is my diary, she said. I have kept it for many years. It contains observations. Things I have seen and heard within these walls. She flipped through the pages, stopping at a particular entry. She held the book up to the moonlight, allowing Ji-hoon to read the words. The entry was dated 5 years ago. It detailed a conversation Mrs. Kim had overheard between his uncle, Lee Jae-hyun, and a prominent businessman, Mr. Park. The conversation was about a secret deal, a plan to undermine Lee Min-ho's authority and seize control of the company. Ji-hoon's blood ran cold. His own uncle, plotting against his father? It was almost too much to comprehend. This is just the beginning, Mrs. Kim said, her voice trembling. She turned the page and pointed to another entry, dated 3 years ago. This one described a meeting between his cousin, Lee So-yeon, and a notorious corporate raider. They were discussing ways to devalue the company's stock, making it vulnerable to a takeover. So-yeon? Ji-hoon whispered, his voice filled with disbelief. He had always considered his cousin a friend, a confidant. But now, he saw her in a new light, a ruthless opportunist willing to betray her own family for personal gain. Mrs. Kim continued to reveal the secrets hidden within the pages of her diary. Each entry was a dagger to Ji-hoon's heart, exposing the treachery and deceit that had festered within his family for years. He learned of secret alliances, hidden bank accounts, and backroom deals that had been orchestrated to weaken his father's empire. The truth was far more complex and insidious than he had ever imagined. The betrayal wasn't just coming from a few disgruntled executives or ambitious socialites. It was coming from his own family, from the people he had trusted the most. "Why didn't you tell me this before?" Ji-hoon asked, his voice filled with pain and anger. Mrs. Kim looked at him, her eyes filled with sorrow. "I was afraid, young master. Afraid of what they would do to you, to your father. They are powerful people, with many resources. I didn't know who to trust." "But you trust me now?" "Yes," she said, her voice firm. "I see the strength in you, the determination to protect your father's legacy. I believe you can stop them." Ji-hoon took a deep breath, trying to process everything he had learned. He felt betrayed, hurt, and utterly overwhelmed. But beneath the pain, a flicker of determination ignited within him. He wouldn't let them win. He wouldn't let them destroy everything his father had worked so hard to build. "What else?" he asked, his voice now steady. "What else do I need to know?" Mrs. Kim hesitated, her gaze shifting to the darkness beyond the garden walls. "There is one more thing," she said, her voice barely audible. "Something that I have never told anyone." She closed the diary and clutched it tightly to her chest. "It concerns your father," she said. "And the true reason why he became so ill." Ji-hoon's heart skipped a beat. His father's sudden illness had been a mystery, a devastating blow that had left him reeling. He had always suspected that something wasn't right, that there was more to the story than he had been told. "Tell me," he said, his voice urgent. "Tell me everything." Mrs. Kim took another deep breath and began to speak. Her words were like a cold wind, chilling Ji-hoon to the bone. She revealed a secret so shocking, so devastating, that it threatened to shatter everything he believed about his family, his father, and himself. According to Mrs. Kim, Lee Min-ho hadn't simply fallen ill. He had been poisoned. Slowly, deliberately, over a period of months. And the person responsible was someone Ji-hoon would never have suspected in a million years. Someone who had been closest to his father, someone who had been a trusted confidant for decades. His own mother. The revelation hit Ji-hoon like a physical blow. He staggered back, his mind reeling, his vision blurring. He couldn't breathe. He couldn't think. It was impossible. His mother, a gentle, loving woman, capable of such a heinous act? "No," he gasped, shaking his head in disbelief. "It can't be true. You must be mistaken." Mrs. Kim's eyes were filled with pity. "I wish I were, young master. But I saw it with my own eyes. I saw her adding something to his tea, something that made him weaker, sicker, day by day." She explained that she had initially dismissed it as medication, something prescribed by the doctors. But as his father's condition worsened, she grew suspicious. She started to investigate, to observe more closely. And she discovered the truth. His mother had been slowly poisoning him, driven by a twisted desire for power and control. She wanted to inherit the Lee Empire for herself, and she saw his father as an obstacle in her path. Ji-hoon felt a wave of nausea wash over him. He couldn't comprehend the depths of his mother's depravity. How could she do such a thing? How could she betray the man she had vowed to love and cherish? "Why?" he whispered, his voice choked with emotion. "Why would she do this?" Mrs. Kim shook her head sadly. "I don't know, young master. I can only speculate. Perhaps she felt neglected, overlooked. Perhaps she resented your father's power and influence. Or perhaps she was simply driven by greed, by a desire for more than she already had. Whatever the reason, the truth was undeniable. His mother had betrayed his father in the most horrific way imaginable. And now, she was likely plotting against him as well, waiting for her opportunity to seize control of the company. Ji-hoon felt a surge of anger, a burning desire for revenge. He wanted to confront her, to demand an explanation, to make her pay for her crimes. But he knew he couldn't act rashly. He needed to be careful, to gather evidence, to build a case that would stand up in court. "What do we do now?" he asked, his voice trembling with rage. Mrs. Kim looked at him, her eyes filled with a mixture of concern and admiration. "We fight back, young master," she said. "We expose the truth and bring them all to justice." She handed him the diary. "This is your weapon," she said. "Use it wisely." Ji-hoon took the diary, his fingers trembling. He knew that this was just the beginning of a long and arduous battle. But he was ready. He was ready to fight for his father's legacy, for his family's honor, and for the truth. He looked at Mrs. Kim, his eyes filled with gratitude. "Thank you," he said. "I don't know what I would have done without you." Mrs. Kim smiled, a faint but genuine smile that reached her eyes. "You are not alone, young master," she said. "I will be with you every step of the way." As they stood there in the darkness, surrounded by the secrets of the old garden, Ji-hoon knew that he had found an unlikely ally in the woman he had always trusted. And together, they would expose the betrayal that had shocked everyone, and bring the truth to light, no matter the cost. The weight of the diary in his hands felt immense, heavier than its worn leather cover suggested. It was a chronicle of deceit, a silent witness to his mother's treachery. He opened it carefully, the aged paper rustling softly in the quiet room. The elegant script, undeniably his mother's, detailed not just daily events, but also her growing resentment towards his father, her meticulous planning, and chillingly, the exact dosages of the poison she administered. Each entry was a dagger twisting in his heart. He read of social gatherings where she smiled and charmed, while simultaneously plotting his father's demise. He read of whispered phone calls, clandestine meetings with shady figures, and the gradual transfer of funds to offshore accounts. The diary painted a portrait of a woman he barely recognized, a woman consumed by ambition and a thirst for power that eclipsed all semblance of humanity. He slammed the diary shut, the sound echoing in the room. The air felt thick, suffocating. He needed to get out, to breathe. He strode out of the house, Mrs. Kim watching him with concerned eyes as he disappeared into the night. He drove aimlessly, the city lights blurring into streaks of color. He couldn't reconcile the woman he knew, the woman who had tucked him into bed as a child, who had comforted him through heartbreaks, who had always seemed so gentle and caring, with the cold, calculating monster revealed in the diary. He found himself drawn to the Han River, its dark waters reflecting the city's shimmering skyline. He parked the car and got out, the cool night air a welcome contrast to the burning turmoil within him. He leaned against the railing, staring into the depths, contemplating the enormity of the situation. How could he confront her? What would he say? Could he even bring himself to accuse his own mother of such a heinous crime? And what about the company? The legacy his father had built? It was all teetering on the brink of collapse, threatened not just by his mother's betrayal, but also by the sharks circling, the executives and socialites eager to seize any opportunity to advance their own agendas. He remembered a conversation he'd had with his father years ago, a rare moment of vulnerability. "Ji-hoon," his father had said, his voice low and serious, "power is a dangerous thing. It can corrupt even the best of intentions. Always be wary of those who seek it, and never trust anyone completely." The words echoed in his mind, a chilling premonition. He had dismissed them then as the ramblings of a tired businessman, but now they rang with a terrifying truth. He reached for his phone, his fingers trembling. He scrolled through his contacts, stopping at his mother's name. He hesitated, his thumb hovering over the call button. He couldn't do it. Not yet. He needed a plan, a strategy. He couldn't let his emotions cloud his judgment. He closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and dialed a different number. A gruff voice answered on the other end. "Mr. Huang," Ji-hoon said, his voice steady despite the turmoil within, "I need your help." Mr. Huang was a former investigator, a man his father had trusted implicitly. He was discreet, resourceful, and utterly loyal. He had helped the family out of several tight spots in the past, and Ji-hoon knew he was the only one he could turn to now. He explained the situation to Mr. Huang, carefully recounting Mrs. Kim's revelations and the contents of the diary. He could hear the older man's sharp intake of breath at the other end of the line. "This is serious, Mr. Ji-hoon," Mr. Huang said, his voice grave. "Very serious. I will need to see the diary. And Mrs. Kim. We need to verify everything, gather evidence." "I understand," Ji-hoon said. "I'll arrange it. Can you meet me tomorrow morning? At my father's old office?" "I'll be there," Mr. Huang replied. "And Mr. Ji-hoon, be careful. Your mother is a dangerous woman. Don't underestimate her." He hung up the phone, feeling a sliver of hope amidst the despair. He wasn't alone. He had Mrs. Kim, Mr. Huang, and the truth. And he would use them all to fight back. He returned to the house, the weight of the diary feeling slightly lighter now. He found Mrs. Kim waiting for him in the living room, her eyes filled with concern. "Are you all right, young master?" she asked. He nodded, forcing a smile. "I will be," he said. "We have a lot of work to do." He spent the rest of the night poring over the diary, meticulously documenting every detail, every date, every name. He cross-referenced the information with company records, bank statements, and his father's medical history. The more he dug, the more damning the evidence became. As dawn broke, painting the sky with hues of pink and gold, he felt a sense of grim determination settle over him. He was ready. He was ready to confront his mother, to expose her treachery, and to reclaim his father's legacy. He found her in the dining room, calmly eating breakfast as if nothing were amiss. She looked up as he entered, a faint smile playing on her lips. "Good morning, Ji-hoon," she said, her voice smooth and composed. "Did you sleep well?" He stared at her, his heart pounding in his chest. He couldn't bring himself to speak. "Not yet." "You look tired," she continued, oblivious to the storm brewing within him. "You should take better care of yourself. You have a company to run now, you know." He finally found his voice, his tone cold and hard. "I know exactly what I have to do," he said. "And it starts with you." Her smile faltered, a flicker of unease crossing her face. "What are you talking about, Ji-hoon?" He pulled the diary from his pocket and slammed it onto the table, the sound echoing in the silent room. "This," he said, his voice trembling with rage. "This is what I'm talking about. Your betrayal. Your lies. Your murder." Her face paled, her eyes widening in disbelief. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. "Don't deny it," he said, his voice rising. "I know everything. Mrs. Kim told me everything. I've read the diary. I know you poisoned my father." Tears welled up in her eyes, but he saw no remorse, no guilt. Only fear. "Ji-hoon, please," she said, her voice pleading. "You don't understand. I did it for you. For us. Your father he was holding you back. He was too traditional, too set in his ways. I just wanted what was best for you." He laughed, a hollow, bitter sound. "Best for me? You killed him. You destroyed our family. And you expect me to believe you did it for me?" I panicked," she stammered. I didn't mean for it to go this far. I just wanted to level the playing field. Level the playing field, he repeated, his voice incredulous. You poisoned him. That's not leveling the playing field, that's murder. He couldn't bear to look at her any longer. He turned and walked away, leaving her alone with her guilt and her lies. He had said what he needed to say. Now it was time to let the authorities handle the rest. He met Mr. Huang at his father's old office, the diary and all the supporting evidence neatly organized in a briefcase. Mr. Huang listened intently as Ji-hoon recounted his confrontation with his mother, his expression grim. I'll take it from here, Mr. Ji-hoon, Mr. Huang said, his voice reassuring. I'll contact the authorities and present them with the evidence. They'll take her into custody and conduct a thorough investigation. What about the company? Ji-hoon asked, his voice filled with anxiety. What happens now? That's your domain, Mr. Ji-hoon, Mr. Huang said. You need to reassure the shareholders, the employees, the public. Let them know that you are in control, that you are committed to upholding your father's legacy. He nodded, taking a deep breath. He knew Mr. Huang was right. He had to be strong, to project an image of confidence and stability, even though he felt like he was crumbling inside. He spent the next few days in a whirlwind of meetings, press conferences, and damage control. He worked tirelessly, fueled by a mixture of grief, anger, and a fierce determination to protect his father's legacy. The news of his mother's arrest sent shockwaves through the city. The socialites and executives who had once fawned over her now recoiled in horror, eager to distance themselves from the scandal. The company's stock price plummeted, and rumors of hostile takeovers swirled. But Ji-hoon refused to be deterred. He rallied his loyal employees, reassured his shareholders, and presented a clear vision for the future of the company. He spoke of his father's values, his commitment to innovation, and his unwavering belief in the power of hard work and integrity. Slowly, painstakingly, he began to rebuild trust, to restore confidence, to stabilize the company. It was a long and arduous process, but he was determined to see it through. One evening, as he sat alone in his father's old office, staring at the city lights twinkling in the distance, Mrs. Kim entered the room. She carried a tray with a cup of tea and a small plate of cookies. You're working too hard, young master, she said, her voice gentle. You need to rest. He smiled, a genuine smile this time. Thank you, Mrs. Kim, he said. I don't know what I would have done without you. She placed the tray on the desk and sat down beside him, her eyes filled with warmth and compassion. You are a strong young man, Ji-hoon, she said. You have your father's spirit in you. You will get through this. And you will make him proud. He took a sip of the tea, its warmth spreading through him. He looked at Mrs. Kim, his heart filled with gratitude. He had lost his father, and he had been betrayed by his own mother. But he had also found an unlikely ally in the woman he had always trusted. And together, they would face whatever challenges lay ahead. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear: Ji-hoon was no longer the naive, sheltered billionaire's son he once was. He had been forged in the fires of betrayal and adversity, and he had emerged stronger, wiser, and more determined than ever to protect his father's legacy and to bring justice to those who had wronged him. The fight was far from over, but he was ready. He was ready to face whatever the future held, with Mrs. Kim by his side. He leaned back in his father's leather chair, the scent of old books and expensive colognes still clinging to the air. The weight of the company, of his father's memory, pressed down on him. He knew the legal battles surrounding his mother's actions would be protracted and messy, a constant source of media scrutiny and speculation. The shareholders' meeting is tomorrow, he said, breaking the silence. I need to convince them I can steer the ship. Mrs. Kim nodded, her expression thoughtful. You will. You have a plan, and you have the right people supporting you. He sighed. It's not just about having a plan, Mrs. Kim. It's about trust. My own mother. I don't know who to trust anymore. She gently placed her hand over his. Trust takes time to rebuild, Ji-hoon. But look around you. You have loyal employees, dedicated executives, they believe in you. And you have me. I will always be here for you. Her words were a balm to his wounded soul. He squeezed her hand, his eyes filled with gratitude. Thank you, Mrs. Kim. Really, thank you. The next day, the shareholders' meeting was a tense affair. The room was packed with anxious faces, their futures hanging in the balance. Ji-hoon stood at the podium, his heart pounding in his chest. He scanned the room, meeting the gaze of each shareholder, one by one. He began by acknowledging the scandal, the damage it had caused to the company's reputation, and the uncertainty it had created. He didn't try to sugarcoat the situation, he spoke frankly and honestly about the challenges ahead. Then, he outlined his plan for the future. He spoke of innovation, expansion, and a renewed commitment to ethical business practices. He emphasized the importance of teamwork, collaboration, and a shared vision for the company's success. He finished his speech with a passionate appeal to their loyalty and their belief in the company's potential. My father built this company from the ground up, he said, his voice filled with emotion. He instilled in us a spirit of innovation, a commitment to excellence, and an unwavering belief in the power of hard work. I pledge to honor his legacy, to uphold his values, and to lead this company to even greater heights. The room was silent as he stepped away from the podium. Then, slowly, tentatively, the applause began. It started as a trickle, but it quickly grew into a thunderous ovation. He had won them over. In the days that followed, Ji-hoon worked tirelessly to implement his plan. He met with employees, listened to their concerns, and empowered them to take ownership of their work. He reached out to potential investors, presenting them with a compelling vision for the company's future. He also spent countless hours reviewing his father's old notes and documents, seeking inspiration and guidance from his wisdom. He discovered a hidden file on his father's computer, containing a detailed analysis of a potential acquisition target, a struggling tech company with groundbreaking artificial intelligence technology. His father had seen the potential of this technology to revolutionize the company's core business, but he had never had the opportunity to pursue the acquisition. Ji-hoon saw this as an opportunity to honor his father's vision and to propel the company into the future. He tasked his team with conducting due diligence on the tech company, and the results were promising. The technology was indeed groundbreaking, and the company was undervalued. He decided to pursue the acquisition aggressively. However, he soon discovered that he wasn't the only one interested in the tech company. A rival conglomerate, known for its ruthless business practices, was also vying for the acquisition. The conglomerate was led by a notorious businessman named Chairman Park, who was known for his cutthroat tactics and his willingness to do anything to get what he wanted. Chairman Park made it clear that he was determined to acquire the tech company, and he wasn't afraid to use his power and influence to get his way. He launched a smear campaign against Ji-hoon and his company, spreading false rumors and trying to undermine his credibility. Ji-hoon refused to be intimidated. He knew that Chairman Park was trying to bully him into backing down, but he was determined to fight for what he believed in. He launched a counteroffensive, exposing Chairman Park's unethical business practices and highlighting the benefits of his own company's vision. The battle for the tech company became a high-stakes game of cat and mouse, with both sides using every trick in the book to gain an advantage. Ji-hoon found himself facing challenges he had never imagined, testing his resolve and pushing him to his limits. One evening, as he was working late in his office, Mrs. Kim entered the room with a worried expression on her face. "Young master," she said, "I overheard some of the executives talking. They said that Chairman Park has been making offers to some of our key employees, trying to poach them." Ji-hoon's blood ran cold. He knew that if Chairman Park could lure away his key employees, it would severely weaken his company and make it much harder to compete. "Do you know who he's been targeting?" he asked, his voice tense. Mrs. Kim hesitated for a moment, then she said, "I heard him mention Mr. Choi, the head of our research and development department." Mr. Choi was one of Ji-hoon's most trusted and valued employees.